saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. So, how many people here think they can sing? Yes, a hand. I saw it over there. Yeah, perfect. Well, actually, I was kind of hoping for that, because that's why it's so exciting for me to be here today. Not only is it a ridiculous excuse to wear this music lover's tie, but it's also an opportunity for me to share my idea that I believe that anyone can sing. And I won't lie, it's met with a lot of skepticism throughout what I do. I'm also a professional singer, aside from being a scientist. I'm also a professional singer, and I travel all around southwestern Ontario. I've been to Germany, Spain, and France. I love sharing music and spreading music. But really, this whole idea for this talk and this idea that anyone can sing and that anatomy and understanding anatomy is so important in understanding the voice and being a better singer actually came from my first voice teacher, who pulled out that anatomy textbook. And for the first time, everything made sense. Something just clicked in me, and I said, oh my gosh, that's how it works? This might help other people. So that's why I'm here today to talk to you. But the thing is, there are two different approaches to teaching the voice and to understanding the voice. And I was talking to a friend of mine who sings at the COC, the Canadian Opera Company, and we were talking about how we learned how to sing initially. And it got me thinking, there's a sensory approach that's often talked about with singing. It's this idea that you can feel the sound on the air, whatever that means. And you can put your hand on your diaphragm. Well, I'm going to prove to you that's not the case, but aside from that, all these ideas of feeling the sound, they're all great if first you understand your instrument. So when I teach singing, I teach at an academy here in Guelph, and I taught privately for a few years. I choose the practical approach, this idea of understanding your instrument. I'll never forget the saying my third-year anatomy professor used with me, and that was, know your machine. Understand how it works, and it empowers you to be able to use it to the best of its ability. And that's what I'm here to do today with you, is to empower you to use your voices, to be able to sing, even if you think you can't. All right, so my idea is that if you can talk, you can sing. And there's three key components that are involved in both talking and singing. And they're breathing, the sound source, how we make the sound, which is the vocal folds within the larynx, and then the articulators, this resonant chamber that's above the larynx, all the way to the opening in the mouth. And we can change these things to change the quality of the sound. It doesn't change our ability to make the sound, so we can all sing. But I'm always met with this, but I can't sing well. But hopefully I can change your mind on this. So the first thing is breathing. We all know that the lungs are involved in breathing. We do it every day, right? We all breathe, hopefully. And so there's two parts involved, inspiration or inhalation and expiration or exhalation. And what I'm just going to do is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the key anatomical components involved in these processes. So when we're talking about inspiration, we're talking about the diaphragm, okay? It's not this muscle you can put your hand on like this. It's this muscle that's shaped like a parachute, and your lungs actually sit right on top of it with your heart there. And underneath it is your stomach and your liver and your abdominal cavity. So think about it. If we contract the diaphragm down, it actually flattens. And we create more space above the diaphragm. And what's above it? The lungs. So we're actually creating more space to take in air. This is a lot like the parachute game we used to play as kids, right? Where you throw the parachute up. That's like the diaphragm relaxing, okay? That's what happens when we expire. But when we inhale, it's like when we all would pull, we'd all run out and we'd pull and try and like play tug of war with the parachute. Well, that's like when the diaphragm's contracted. All of a sudden, there's all this space above the diaphragm, and we can see our friends, right? So that's just kind of what I want you to think about when we're talking about inspiration. But how do we really regulate it? Well, sort of the unsung hero of expiration is the abdomen. And this is sort of met with a lot of skepticism as well, because I was teaching a lecture at Guelph-Humber this summer, and I just kind of wanted to get an idea of what's out there, what literature is out there available to the general population about the respiratory apparatus, all the components of breathing. So where do I go? I go to Wikipedia, obviously. And I type in respiratory apparatus, and we get the diaphragm, the lungs, the intercostal muscles, but nowhere about the abdomen. So I want everyone to sit on the front of your seats. And I want you to really contract your abdomen, just really contract it. And now take a deep breath. Right, not happening, right? So already that shows you how important the abdomen is in breathing. Now do the same thing, but this time relax your abdomen. You can take a way deeper breath, right? If you're focusing on just relaxing, you should actually see your abdomen just go out a little bit. So you have this six-pack muscle, this rectus abdominis muscle, and you have these oblique muscles that sort of wrap around. And this is a lot like the structure of a corset. Man, I'm sorry, there's never been a really good male version of the corset. Or I suppose maybe there is, but The idea is that it's sort of this thing that wraps around. And if we think of tightening that corset slowly, we think of increasing the pressure against the diaphragm, and slowly, as it's relaxing, we decrease the space for the lungs, and therefore we're expiring at a constant rate. We're not just going, right? We can actually sustain for constant times. So when I'm teaching young children how to sing, I'm sure everyone here has blown up a balloon, right? Sort of intuitively, what we do is we take a deep breath in, and then we contract everything, and we just create this steady stream of air. And that's what you do when you're trying to get sort of a younger child, or even someone who isn't as experienced in singing, to really make that connection between how important the abdomen is for regulating expiration. Now, I have a demonstration to really prove to you, because I feel like I'm looking at it and I'm seeing a lot of people who aren't really convinced that the abdomen is important in expiration. So I'm going to call a volunteer up to the stage, and I'm going to prove to you how important regulating the muscles of your abdomen are in breathing. After my nap. All right. So, I'm just going to get you to move that way a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit more. Just put this right there. Yeah, all right. So, what I can do is when I inhale, right now I'm contracting my six-pack muscles. And I'm going to relax the sides, the oblique muscles, so that I can take a big breath in. Watch her. Do you see her raise up? Thank you. So you're now believers that the abdomen is involved in breathing. So let's go on. Let's talk about the sound source. The larynx and the vocal folds, contained at the top of the trachea, in the throat. And there's sort of a lot of mysticism about it because we don't feel like we have control over them. But when I ask you a question, and I inflect at the end of a sentence, or I'm just really ditzy, we're changing pitch of our sound. Or if I ask someone, I'm like, okay, just say a note. Ah. Okay, now say one a bit higher. Ah. Okay, we just changed sound, right? We have this amazing ability, this connection to our brain to change the pitch of our voices, even though we can't see the muscles that are doing it. Okay, but we can pull these vocal folds apart, we can stretch them, we can relax them, we can do all sorts of things to them without really being able to see them. This is the same all around the world. The same two-tone descent is heard calling for mothers. Mommy. That idea is all around the world. This is innately human. This is something we do until we develop sort of this pride complex that doesn't like our voices, and we sort of shut away, and we don't want to use that. We talk in a monotone. But the idea is that you have this profound control over one of the most intricate parts of what makes us human. Finally, the articulators, this resonant space. This is everything above the larynx, okay? It's often referred to as the pharynx, but it includes the roof of the mouth, the tongue, the teeth, the lips. And we can change all these. We do it on a regular basis. For instance, the larynx. When you took that deep breath in, you probably can't see from here, but when I take a deep breath in, my larynx drops, okay? And guys, this is really useful when you're shaving, and you have that little straggly hair right over your Adam's apple, that laryngeal prominence, it's called. And if you just take a deep breath in, you can get it, no problem. So if you can shave, you can sing. Now, also, the tongue, okay? Now, I know a lot of people don't often think about it, but just say some of these. Heed, hid, had, hod. And think to yourself, where's my tongue? What shape is it in? Do you notice it changing? And we all say different vowel sounds every day. So we know that we have control over our tongue. And what about our palate? What about the roof of our mouth? Well, we all have gotten that annoying call from the telemarketers, right? Or we've all yawned in class. That you have control over how high your palate is or how low it is. And it's the difference between creating more space for resonating or less, right? When we drop that palate, that roof of the mouth, we're creating less space. So it's like hearing versus right? It's that difference, just by raising the palate. So I've sort of coined a term that I call the Ford principle. It's this idea of quality over quantity. We can all sing, okay? But we can also all change the quality of the sound, okay? And so this is the Ford Focus versus the Ford Model T, the first affordable automobile. And so what I want to do here is I want to go back and look at those three keys that we talked about. Breathing, the power behind the voice. It's like the engines in the car. If we learn to develop this, right, we learn to develop this, how we breathe, then we can make our breathing more efficient and we can sing better. But that doesn't change our ability to sing. It's just like the engines of the Ford Model T and the Ford Focus are very different, okay? That's not going to be argued. But they can still perform their initial function, their base function of going from point A to point B. This sound source, this finite motor control, right? We have that control over our vocal folds, changing them, altering them. And it's sort of like the brakes or the steering on a car, right? You're not going to see a Ford Model T whip around a corner at 60 kilometers an hour. That's just not going to happen. I don't even know if it can go 60 kilometers an hour. But the idea is that they can still, both cars, the Ford Focus and the Ford Model T, can still go from point A to point B, the function for which they were designed for. Just like, without really establishing that connection, you can sing, but once you establish that connection, once you listen to enough music, once you sing enough, you can be a better singer. You can improve the quality. And finally, the shape, right? We talked about changing the shape with the tongue, with the palate, lowering or raising the larynx. We can change all these things, which change the shape of our instrument, and that changes the quality of our sound. It's like the shape of the vehicle, aerodynamics, all that stuff. I don't know a lot about it, but I know that the Ford Focus is more aerodynamic than the Ford Model T. But they can still both go from point A to point B. And we can still sing, even if we don't have this finite control over the shape of our instrument. So that's the Ford principle. So now I want to ask you, do you think maybe you could sing now? I'm not going to make you sing if you raise your hand. So just to kind of wrap up, I want to just share, in the best way I know possible, sort of the closing point from all this. So I'm just going to get the music to play. Or stand here awkwardly. So I really do hope that you go home today and you think, okay, I breathe every day, right? I inflect at the end of a sentence, right? I do all these things, and therefore, I can sing. Here's a little tune I think you all might recognize. Fly me to the moon, I'm gonna sing it to the skies. Now hear me out, you can too. In other words, I know you wanna. No, we're not all Frankie, Whitney Houston, or Marvin Gaye. But like a kid at the piano, the keys are there so we can play. If you can talk, then here's the thing. Though you may doubt it, trust me, you can sing. Thank you.